So for wine education, I would say that, you have to taste. I think tasting is really important because things are changing, how, what styles are popular and techniques. But just being able to understand quality and the style of the wine and why that wine tastes the way it does. So
Hey guys, this is Sid Patel, CEO of Beverage Trade Network, and we are filming for Inside the Drinks business. I'm at Peter Mark, Master of Wine's house. So thank you, Peter, for having me here.
hey, it's great to have you here.
Wonderful to be here in Napa. We're going to talk about a role of an educator in the wine industry and how education can help you grow in the wine business. So Peter, once again, give a little. I'm sure a lot of people know you, but for the international audience, give a little context, a storytelling about yourself and your journey.
Sure. I started in retail. I worked about half my career, 20 plus years doing retail. And I was very fortunate to work for some very high-end retailers where I was exposed to many different types of wines from all over the world. Travel as well as part of my buying.
So you're a wine buyer?
I was a wine buyer. And then the last 20 years been doing education and different roles in education. I was the wine educator for COPIA, the American Center, which was in Napa, which was started by Robert Mondavi, and that was a nonprofit cultural center. From there, I went to Constellation Brands, where I was the vice president of education, and then left them about 4 years ago and joined Napa Valley Wine Academy, where I now work part-time, but do a lot of teaching and master classes as well.
Great.
In addition to that, as a master of wine, I do a lot of education for MW students, particularly on the tasting exam, which I'm involved with.
Great, super. I think we want to touch base on some of the things that we were chatting about, which is how you can grow in wine business. And let's start with what are the skills that you would recommend learning today for different kind of people. So give me an example of maybe someone just wanting to start in a business.
Right.
First one, like they're not from the industry, they want to get in the industry. What kind of things they should learn and where they should start, and then maybe give an example of someone who is from the industry in a winery, trying to want to grow their business and apply those methods.
Okay. Well, for those who are starting in the industry, I think one of the great things about wine education today is it's so widely available. When I started, I used to take community rec center classes, and then I started taking UC Davis extension classes and things like that. Today we also have the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, which we teach through Napa Valley Wine Academy, but there are many locations around the world now that offer over 80 different providers, I think, and many of those are also offering online so that people who may not be able to travel to the given location can study in a virtual environment. And those are, I think, for many people, WSET is something that really covers the whole world of wine.
Basic 101.
Basic 101 to, level 1, you get the basics. Level 2, you get a little more deeper into varieties. Level 3 is you're applying concepts of climate and winemaking production on style, quality, and price. And then, of course, diploma, which is it's like getting a 2-year college degree. It's very rigorous, but it also gives you the business of wine, which I think is different from any other wine program in that they include a research paper that requires you to apply some of your knowledge in the business world, which is indispensable for anybody who's going to be in the wine business today. They need to have that, not just have the wine knowledge, but how are you going to use that information and apply it to your daily work or even your enjoyment of wine, understanding where wine is going and then trends and risks and things that are happening in the world today.
And you were seeing this when employers hire people, you were seeing this completely helping, like education, you're seeing a clean ROI?
Yes, I do. In fact, just one example of fellow master of wine, Curtis Mann, who at the time was the head buyer for Rayleigh's. And he partnered with us to do some wine education. And they did that with their wine stewards because they saw immediate results in how their wine sales improved. A lot of those results are somewhat hard to track, but when I was at Constellation, we did that as well. We would take an account, and if we had done education for them, we had to at least see a rise in the sales. If we didn't, then we weren't doing something right. But there are other variables that could have an impact on that as well. And it's not just education, but I always say education, and especially in corporate world, is a value add for people who are in the sales side, because we can come in like at Constellation and offer our salespeople the ability to educate that accounts team and help grow their business. And that's something that's really important. It's not just teach about wine per se, but let's talk about sales service. If you're a restaurant, how service in a restaurant. If it's a retail shop, how do you interact with the customer? Those so-called business skills, which are again indispensable in today's world.
True. So let's just go with some examples, right? In a winery, what are the 5 or 6 main modules that you would advise the CEO that, hey, if you were hired for a consultancy, right? Say, let's start here. These are the 5 modules I would roll out first, in educating my staff.
Well, you take the basics of wine, growing grapes, viticulture, winemaking, especially for a winery.
But even to the driver of the truck, you would advise he learns like that?
I would, yeah. Okay. I would, because what that driver of the truck does influences what's going on in the winery. Okay. And I think that's something to know, at least be aware of what other aspects of the winery's operations have an impact.
So wine growing, you said?
Wine growing, winemaking, and then obviously the hospitality and how you interact with customers. And then, of course, tasting, because, first of all, tasting's fun. It'll make people be engaged. And I always say when you talk about wine education, I always think about the 3 C's. And one of those C's is culture, meaning if you get people who begin to really appreciate wine as an agricultural product that comes from Mother Nature, that varies from year to year, it's something that's really dynamic and exciting. And by building that culture, you're building the passion that people will then want to grow, and show their interest and do the best job possible. So, and the other couple of C's, if you allow me to bring those up, besides culture, is the confidence. So knowing a little bit about wine gives that employee the confidence to speak more professionally and correctly about what they're doing. And that's something that I think is really important. And then the third one is credibility. When especially if you're working in a tasting room, and if you've got some certification, not only do you have the confidence, but you have some credibility when you're talking to somebody. Like,
people
you don't know
double
anything.
Question.
Instead of saying you don't know what you're talking about, no, I actually do. Or at least I think I do. But that is something I think credibility, confidence, and culture are what wine education can do in any different type of operation.
Got it. What about, sales and distribution? Would you advise that?
Absolutely. That's where it's critical for any company. And most companies today do some type of education, whether it's a whole team, places like...
Do you think there is a disconnect still where, the sales rep out there who's selling the wine and the maker has no idea about the sales have no idea about the maker, they don't really care about each other's feelings. Okay, yes, everyone makes the best wine. Right. And you know what I mean? Sales rep just wants to sell what the retailer, ultimately, they want to maintain the account as a priority, not the product.
Sure, yeah.
So what advice do you have to bridge the gap?
So it's happening today. I mean, today you find winemakers that go out and do education, and you have salespeople who are learning about those wines. Okay. And today everybody loves stories. So part of education is learning what that story is and how to present that story. Being able to present it in a way that's engaging and memorable is really critical to success in the wine business.
People pursuing, the ultimate paths. I mean, are there bigger things than master sommelier or master wine? What is the best level of education which we credit right now?
The 2 you just mentioned, I think, are probably
the best.
Are the 2 best. If you're in the hospitality business, going through the master sommelier or the court of master some wine, or something similar. There's some other sommelier accreditations. Those are really important because they not only focus on wine knowledge and wine tasting, but the service aspect. If you're more inclined to do anything else in the wine business outside of hospitality, I mean, it could be hospitality, but then I would recommend the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, or WSET, and that is the precursor for the Institute of Masters of Wine exam. We recommend that students have completed diploma before they pursue the MW. Although it could come, person may have a degree in enology or viticulture from some university, or they may have some accreditation through the Master Sommeliers. Those can be applied if you don't have diploma.
What is the difference between a master sommelier and a master of wine in your book, right?
In my book is, I always tell people, it's like, I cannot pour wine without spilling it. It's like I could never be an MS simply because I'm a mess. But yeah, again, it's really those people who tend to be focused on hospitality, restaurants, hotels, cruise ships, you name it. Of course, nowadays they've become, sometimes they're celebrities and they have gone off and done other things. But wine, masters of wine tend to be in many different disciplines. Usually there's quite a few who are educators like myself. They can be winemakers, they can be wine writers or journalists. They work in the distribution business. And there's, because it's a fairly well-rounded education when you do the MW, a lot of them are consultants, and they can consult across many different disciplines in the wine industry.
Got it. Back on the education, right? What kind of skills you would advise people should learn today, which are more in demand as a career?
So for wine education, I would say that, you have to taste. I think tasting is really important because things are changing, what styles are popular and techniques, but just being able to understand quality and the style of the wine and why that wine tastes the way it does. So tasting is important, but then understanding the theory behind that tasting. So why does this wine taste the way it does? What's the terroir, the sense of place, and what does the viticulture, the growing of the grapes, contribute to the style of wine? What does the winemaking contribute to that? And then knowing those things, and then comparing a given wine or place with other parts of the world through tasting, through comparative tastings, and that really helps build one's knowledge of wine, is having all of those put together. It takes time, though. It certainly takes time.
Got it. What about, jobs? Where are you seeing more of job postings? Which kind of roles are popping up? I'm asking from the angle of students.
Yeah.
Right? You have a lot of students that come to your academy.
Yeah.
What do they want to learn?
Yeah. They want to learn, a lot of them want some sort of certification.
Okay.
So they're studying to pass, WSET, MW, whatever. But I think they're really looking to be well-rounded.
Okay.
Now, there are certain people who may then choose a certain discipline, like I want to go into sales, I want to go into marketing or PR, I want to go into winemaking.
Yeah.
But no matter what they decide ultimately, to have some well-rounded, all-encompassing understanding of wine is really important.
And from the student, angle, how would you, a lot of people are working full time as well, right? So studying is sort of not the priority, but at the same time, it's something which they can do for career or maybe just for their passion.
Right.
What are the tips, or what are some courses in your own academy, let's say, you can advise that people can study online, part-time? Are there options there? Walk us over some modules that you guys have.
Yeah, so we through Napa Valley Wine Academy do a number of online courses. All of our WCT classes are available online, and we send the wine kits out for those people who do the online learning.
Okay.
With level 1 and level 2, you can take the exam in the comfort of your home. Levels 3 and diploma level 4, you have to go to an exam center because it includes a tasting, which obviously you can't do that at home. But many people who are looking to pursue that education, I think we're seeing a lot of people now who are both consumers or in the industry who are taking advantage of some of the learnings we've had since COVID. And really, the online learning platform has grown so exponentially in the last few years. People are better learning management systems, better engagement with students online. It's probably still not as ideal as being in person, but for the cost of travel nowadays, it makes really good sense to be able to have that as an option. And we find that our online sales have gone through the roof at Napa Valley Wine Academy. In fact, we're the largest WSET provider in the world, simply because since COVID, so many of our students have gravitated toward the online environment. We're back open in person as well, though.
So, who is a successful student, and what does it take to really, succeed at learning?
Well, to be successful as a student, you have to have discipline. You have to be able to find time to, especially if you're working full time, to be able to devote to studying. and attending classes. That's something that can be really hard for some people who maybe haven't had. I find really good success from students who have had success in other areas where they have to be disciplined, whether it's like an athlete, or maybe they play a musical instrument or something where they've had to practice and prepare.
Yeah, you know that character will succeed because it's just a character.
It's a character. So having that discipline, and then the other one is I think being humble, being honest with yourself, because a lot of times wine is intimidating, and you're never going to know everything. I always tell people that the biggest lesson I've learned as a master of wine can never truly be mastered.
True.
And if you understand that, then you're going to listen as opposed to trying to be heard, if you know what I mean. A lot of people like to spout what they know. I'm more just like, I'm going to take it in, learn what I can, and when something comes up that I can speak about, that's fine. But when you're learning, take the time to listen to any criticisms or feedback you might get so that you can improve upon your performance.
Let's throw some blogs or some reading. What are your top 3 recommended books?
My books? So World Atlas of Wine, Hugh Johnson, Jancis Robinson. Jancis Oxford Companion to Wine. And then the third one, it really depends. I would say maybe the Sotheby's Encyclopedia of Wine is also really good. Okay. But from there, I would get into more individual books that focus on a given topic.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about the podcast? Does anything come in mind?
Oh gosh, there's so many great podcasts. I can't pick one.
I don't want to. Just any good 2 names.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a good one that I have a good friend of mine who lives here in Napa. Her name is Karen Wetzel, and she does one. I wish I had the name of the podcast. I can look it up on my phone. But it's all about career growth and how to get in the wine industry.
All right.
Kind of what we're talking about today. And she has guests from she's had guests over the years from distributors, from winemaking, from marketing, and they share their stories of how they got to where they are. Karen Wetzel, I think it's Career in the Wine Industry or something like that.
And what about blogs? Any blogs that shine out for you?
I tell you, I love Tim Gazer, who's a master sommelier, great writer. Another person who just started a blog is one of the early MWs, Joel Butler. He just started his own blog just in the past few months, and I've been reading that quite a bit and enjoying that. What I do is I subscribe to all the news feeds, and if something comes up in one of those feeds, and I read them there at that point. But I don't necessarily subscribe to any one blog, but pick and choose when something looks interesting to read.
One last one on people trying to make education as their career. What is a good path for them? Like what courses do you advise? And is there even a course for that?
Not really. Again, having some credential though, whether it's through a sommelier course or the WSET, I would say it was a basic foundation. And then from there, we do have a lot of our instructors at Napa Valley Wine Academy who have gone through the program. And once you pass, let's say, level 3, you can teach level 2 or level 1. Okay. Once you pass diploma, you can teach any level. And then you also, as part of the WSET, you would have to be educator certified. So you go through a whole week course where they actually train you how to be a good instructor, and you are tested on your ability to present. So it's one way to make a role as an educator. And a lot of people come from sales and like in big corporations where they, whether it's Jackson Family, where they may be in sales and they love what they do and they're great with customers, so they gravitate onto the education side. Okay. And a lot of times people who may have been in marketing or winemaking also become educators. So
nice.
Any way you would love to make it a role, I think you can find that pathway.
Great, Peter. On behalf of our industry, I think we all love you. As I told before, I think I've seen a lot of admiration come whenever I post about you as well. It's always a lot of love the community gives. So thank you so much for helping, educating all of us.
Thanks for coming to Napa.
Thank you so much.